Good morning. It's 11:05 a.m. Do you know where your home equity is? Welcome to the Velocity of Money. Here now to answer your questions about real estate, capital, equity, funding, and finance, your host of the Velocity of Money, Michael J. Barnes.
I always tell people when I was dealing with them in their bankruptcy situations or foreclosures or whatever, especially when somebody called me and they say, well, I want to file a Chapter 13 to save my house. And I said, you don't even think about doing that without an attorney. And I give them an attorney's name and whatever, it worked out for them because I think the numbers were like 95% of all Chapter 13s filed by the homeowner themselves failed. Yeah. And I think that's the kind of numbers we're going to see in loan modifications here. We saw numbers the other day that came out from the government saying that over 50% of the loan mods right now are failing.
56% was the number. Yeah.
And I would suspect that 95% of those were not negotiated by an attorney.
No, you're absolutely right. The other thing too, one thing that's important here, people think they're getting a loan modification because their lender told them that they're going to increase their payment over the next X number of months to make up for the back payments. That is not a loan modification by my standards. That's called a forbearance. And the majority of people that fail because they're put into a plan that was already designed to fail. For God's sakes, if your lender is going to increase your mortgage payment by 50%, how on earth are you going to pay that when you couldn't pay it when it was right? To me, it's mind-boggling, the idiocracy of the mentality of these loss mitigation departments that are not looking out for you. They're mitigating the loss for the banks. You need someone that's going to fight for your rights, and that's what we do.
Well, those guys are employed by the bank, and they have a vested interest in seeing the bank do well.
And they've got huge hundreds of millions and billions of dollars in losses that they need to pick up.
Yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer. Plus, you can't discount the psychological element of this. If you're in a stressful situation and you're emotionally tied to what if, how am I, what is this going to look like in 6 months, you can't objectively negotiate your own case with your own lender. It's just not psychologically feasible to even consider that.
Even if you had the time or could figure out how to do the time.
And one thing, to take it back to a personal level, there were many times when I was working with people who were in foreclosure that I would get the phone call the night before the foreclosure sale, and they would ask me, can you help me? Oh. And I said, well, yeah, I can help you. This is what you want to do. You want to go down to the bankruptcy court first thing in the morning, and you want to file a Chapter 13 by yourself. Now, I'm not saying go through the Chapter 13 by yourself, because I give them the attorney's phone number, but they got to be there in line, 9 o'clock, get it filed, and then go get an attorney to work with. Well, why did they end up in that situation? In many cases, they would tell me that they had been working on getting what they called a loan modification, more accurately a foreclosure, or a forbearance agreement is what they were working on with their lender. And they would send in all the paperwork that the lender asked for, and they'd call them back after 30 days, and the lender would say, oh, well, we lost it. And so then they'd get it all together again and they'd send it in. It'd be another 30 days. Oh, well, we lost it. Or this, or that. Or they'd ask for more paperwork. And eventually what it came down to is within a couple of days before the actual foreclosure sale date, they would call them up and say, nope, we decided not to do your forbearance agreement for you. And then they're calling me looking for help. Now, if you were working with an attorney, I guarantee you that lender isn't going to lose your paperwork.
Well, I want to real quick. Brett, did you have a question before I?
No, go ahead with your thought.
Okay, so I had this young lady of 50 years old today call me. Her husband had just passed away 2 months ago. Sad situation. Very difficult to talk with her because I just felt so horrible. This is unexpected. She's dealing with, I probably shouldn't say the name of the servicer, but she's dealing with what would be considered a subprime lender. Their call center, their loss mitigation department is in India. Okay? Well, India doesn't really have the same kind of rules and guidelines. There's a huge language barrier between her and the person she's talking to try to save her home. Her husband just died. She hasn't been able to work. She's lost his income, and they told her there was nothing that they could do. And quite frankly, nothing could be further from the truth for this woman. Her loan modification would fly through the system, even with this subprime lender. With a hardship like that, trust me, the lender doesn't want to be on the front page of any newspaper denying someone like that a loan modification. And we are here to help for those those situations.
I had a very similar thing happen to a friend of mine, and I suspect it was the same servicer because she was as well speaking to someone in India. And again, it was the same thing. It was the runaround, but they were real fast on filing the foreclosure. And in fact, in this case here with my friend, she had unfortunately had to file a bankruptcy as well. And while in the bankruptcy, it was Chapter 7, she was only in it for like a month, they came along and pulled her out of the bankruptcy. So they had plenty of time to come after her to get the house back, but they couldn't spend 2 seconds helping her get her loan modification done. And then they attempted to do a short sale on it, and of course they couldn't take 2 seconds to take the time to respond to the short sale documents either.
That's a great story because we've talked about her, and it is the same servicer, by the way. For more information on the loan modification process, or if you want to talk with Brett Fallon, Dan Havey, or myself, you'd call 480-835-6248. That's 480 Velocity, and we'll be right back in just a moment.